So I mean, what year? Like, I don't know if this is part of like just being human and growing fur on your testicles, and everything gets a little grayer after that. Um, but like, when did the glitz and the glamour of holidays like stop like reveling in it to where like that's the holiday that you always look back on as being your favorite, or like that's what the holiday should be.
Or I mean, the last one that you liked, not necessarily a favorite.
Well, the last one like you're really excited for, like child, like giddy. Ooh, I'm gonna get to do this or that or the other. Like it's so hard to get a wiggle out for a holiday nowadays.
Well, I mean, if your criteria for judging the answer to this question is when you got fur on your testicles, I mean, that was quite a while ago.
Well, for some of us, not so long, but
but no. To answer your question, so I guess here's how I would think about that one. I remember when we were really young, we would get like Nerf guns, whatever. And we'd have like Nerf wars in grandma's basement.
Yeah.
Set up the pillow cushions and have forts and like shoot each other with the Nerf guns and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think that was peak. But that was really young.
But
that was like 5, 6, 7, 8. That was right. Peak holiday time, which, nobody's going to be surprised that, as a young child that you really love the holidays more.
Right.
But in terms of like when it really fell off, I can't pinpoint the exact day, but at some point in our maybe late childhood, early teen years, it quit being an every year thing where both your dad and Uncle Damien were everybody was there at the same time.
Right.
Like it would be like, well, your dad had a trip, so he couldn't make it this time. Or Uncle Damien had, something going on and he couldn't make it that time. Right. So as I remember it, up to a certain point in childhood, the whole family was there every single year. No questions asked, no exceptions. And then at some point it became a patchwork thing, or like when my brother got married and stuff, sometimes they weren't there, or
right.
They had stuff to do with the kids or whatever the case may be. So whenever that time was, like I said, it was late childhood, early teens, that would be when it was for me.
Well, that's just like, yeah, I'm talking about like that rosy, like, is it just that you become more cynical in your older age, or like older age, I should say? Like, cause I remember like, those holidays are the ones that were the gold standard, right? That's what you held every other holiday to.
Right.
Like that, dude, this Christmas is going to be so awesome because last Christmas was awesome. It's just like, oh, Christmas. Now I'm going to have to buy a bunch of shit for a bunch of people that I don't really care about. This is
whoa, easy.
Exciting.
Easy. These family members listen to this thing. They're going to be like, is it me? Am I the one?
If you get me a present, just look me directly in the eye and you'll know. You'll know exactly where you stand.
Kris Kringle's glimmer isn't there.
If you get a pair of fucking socks from me, you know where you stand.
You're the one.
Yeah.
You're the one.
Jesus. Anyway,
on that cheery note,
yeah,
should we launch in?
Launch in.
Weapons of Meme Destruction episode 20 is coming to you live and in, wouldn't be living color.
It's grayish
dull
color.
Gray and blacknish from inside.
Blacknish?
Blacknish. That's a new word. Just made it up.
Okay. Not the word of the day, though.
From inside the Gulag. Why the Gulag, you ask? Because we made the mortal mistake of having more than 10 people at our Thanksgiving. So the authorities busted us down and threw us in cages. Speaking of happy holiday occurrences.
Some of them are relatives, but I mean, we just picked up just random passersby. They weren't all here by choice either. We did force our party onto a lot of people too. We Weinsteined our party onto many a folk.
But we want you to all know ahead of time that when and if we die in here, we didn't kill ourselves, just like Epstein.
Right. I've got a thirst for life, and I want to see it go to its epic conclusion.
The intro banter notwithstanding,
right,
about our thirst for life.
My lack of thirst for life has brought a new thirst for life, and I want to see Christmas, by God.
The fact that my life is about to be is closer than it's ever been to being snuffed out has given me a renewed thirst for life.
How ironic.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I didn't read the rules intently, okay? I thought it was 10 people in person. Apparently, 9 people in person and 2 virtual pushes you over the line, and here we sit.
Right. Well, I mean, it's hard to keep up with all of them, you know? You're not even allowed to see the sun out in California, apparently, right now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, unless you're Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi at all.
Unless you're above the law. I mean, unless you're above the laws that you actually make for everyone else to follow, but not
yeah.
you. So.
Yeah. There's some sort of line in the general, mass of humanity. At some point, you become such an expert and such a noble public servant that all of the rules that you pass for everybody else no longer apply to you.
Right.
That line clearly happens when you're elected to office,
right.
But all the other times, it's a crapshoot.
Like a laying on of hands that passes through all the human knowledge that's ever been gained.
Yeah.
Once you reach that high point of becoming mayor of a city or something like that. Yeah. When did that become like standard issue shit? Like we just think that the politicians are immediately exceptional across a wide span of topics that are just as varied as, the trimmings on the turkey that were laid down today.
There actually is.
Oh, really?
A time in history when that happened. You can probably trace it back to the early 20th century, the Progressive Era, and Woodrow Wilson was really popular for this. Basically, his conceptualization of the government or of leadership in general was that experts should make policy. And because they're experts, they're automatically going to know what's better for the people than the people will know themselves. And so, it was pervasive throughout all of the things that he would. So like, for example, the League of Nations was that same kind of idea. We're going to have these elites from the most powerful countries in the world, and they're going to make global policy, and everything's going to be fine, and no more war.
See, I always thought the League of Nations was like a new sport that we were coming up with. Like the League of Nations lacrosse or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that would be far less harmful.
That's how misinformed I am. But Dane, you just brought that up. I'm so glad you did. Let's just, segue all the way over here, or rascal, if you will, or whatever means of non-caloric burning motion that you choose, and say, well, how can we trust the experts when one day the experts are the experts and the next day the experts aren't the experts? Like both sides said that the WHO can't be trusted at any given time. And then the CDC said that they can't be trusted, or the government said the CDC is good, then they said they're bad, then they said they're on, then they said they're off. So I don't know. Help me.
I wish I could, but I'm just not a sufficient level expert to be entitled to an opinion on the topic. Wow. I mean, I'm going to give you mine anyway.
Right.
Ignore it because I'm not an expert, right?
Oh, right.
But no, I mean, this goes back to, we'll have to link in the show notes which one it is because I forget, but a call back to the episodes 1 or 2 where we talked about me getting Facebook Factbook check. Facebook Factbook. Hey, that actually kind of works.
That's the new competitor to Facebook is Factbook. But it's going to be run by the fucking...
by the internal Facebook fact checkers.
It's the conservative wave against Facebook.
But no, I share an MSNBC article, so that real bastion of right-wing conservative journalism.
They do get a little out there for me, I got to tell you.
An MSNBC report about an MSNBC news article about a WHO report about the non-transferability of coronavirus on hard services, and that it's not that big of a concern. Within 48 hours. I was fact book checked. And got that little gray screen over my thing like, hey, beware if you're going to read this. This is possibly false news.
False, fake fuckery.
Apparently, whether you even are allowed to share the opinions of the alleged experts on a Monday as opposed to a Wednesday makes all the difference in the world.
Well, not even that. It's like, didn't they like claim that it wasn't a reputable news source too, or wasn't that like some of the grounds?
I'd have to scroll back on my timeline and see what exactly the statement was, but it was hilarious.
So instead of getting mad at me, like you should have gone to the MSNBC thing and like check to see if the article was still there too.
Well, that was my question at the time. It was like, do you think MSNBC is going to get fact checked? I am going to go back and click on that link just to see if the link is still viable.
Oh, I doubt it.
You think MSNBC took it down?
If you're already not on a list other than Santa's or AOC's, you're definitely going on a list once you fact check that. We got another one. We got a live one down here. And
no, that's funny. You know what they will do? Those articles, a lot of times, is they'll leave them up, but then at the very bottom of the article, there'll be like editor's note, and then they'll change something in there.
Yeah.
But
instead of admitting that they were wrong or anything like that.
But sometimes when they do that, the editor's note is like a key fact in the entire story that you never mentioned. Like, I forget the article, but like there was a New York Times article a couple months ago. And they were talking about, this kid. They had paragraphs of this sad story about this 14-year-old kid who died from coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And then, like in the 11th paragraph, they give you the like laundry list of comorbid diseases. Like, this kid was very, very sick.
They'll say that he was an athlete. He was this. He ran half marathons every weekend.
Yeah.
But then it turns out like he would drive a half marathon in his Honda Civic delivering pizzas.
Yeah, no, that's the way their quote unquote true news. That's the way it operates. They'll be like, "Ooh, scary thing up front," and then like 14 paragraphs later, they're like,
"It wasn't that scary."
Here's the thing that's kind of important that maybe you should mention early on.
Sure.
So I'm assuming that's how that MSNBC article.
I mean, isn't that how? It's so.
Somebody probably called him and said, "Hey, some people, Dane in particular, shared this on Facebook, and we need you to fix it."
It's just
yeah.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting trying to keep up with all this shit.
It is. I mean, unless you're Nancy Pelosi and you just say, fuck keeping up with it. And then if you ever get caught, you just say, I was set up.
Yeah. Maybe that should be the ploy for all the people that got canceled over the past couple of months too. Like, I was set up. I accidentally let my real thoughts come out. So I was set up.
Isn't that funny how that excuse of being set up in the joking context that you just made about the people who got canceled, right? That excuse would never work for them, right? But it's just like, oh, Nancy was set up. Next story.
Right. Yeah.
Look no further. Look no.
Oh, naughty,
no deeper, my friend.
Naughty Nancy got a little hair talk. But anyway, funny. That's fun. But yeah, so
just
go ahead. You look like you're burning with desire to bring something up over there. Just flowing.
On this here podcast, sometimes we get into the last episode was a perfect example of this. We really got into the weeds with it. We gave you stats, facts, data. We really went through a lot of effort to bring our point across about, John Legend's whole thing about trust the government to provide for the poor people instead of direct charity.
That's a callback.
I feel like that's not even necessarily what gets to the masses the most. What gets to the masses the most is simply just no facts, no data, no nothing. Just point out the blatant hypocrisy, the blind hubris of these people. And by these people, I mean the ones in power, the ones that feel like they're morally entitled and justified to live your life better than you are.
Please do denote the people that you're referring to when you say these people.
Yeah. That's why I said powerful people, politicians, quote unquote experts.
Oh, I got you.
Those kind of. But really, it's not even necessarily powerful. It's anybody with that mentality that everybody else is stupid. I'm not. So I'm morally justified to rule your life. And not only that, if I choose not to do it, I'm morally justified to vote for people to rule your life because you're so stupid. You know, that mentality, just pointing out the hypocrisy of it, the hubris of it, the depths of just shitty personness that it takes to get to that point and treat it like a Gavin Newsom, like a Nancy Pelosi, like my own rules don't apply to me. And just pointing that out, I think makes the endeavor of this podcast much more successful. We can give them all the facts and the data in the world, but just pointing that out to be like, these people are not better than you.
Well, I mean,
no matter what they say,
most of them,
quit listening to them.
Most of the people that we just hold in high stead like that, it always turns out that they have a story where they're human or something like that, or even worse, like the Kennedy thing and where he was drunk driving and flew off a cliff and someone died in his car, and it's like, well, won't do that again. And then no one fucking says anything for 20 years, but they all know. It's like that. They're all humans too, man. They're just because they're holding the office doesn't mean that they, should have carte blanche or whatever they want to do. And they should be, I mean, if they really do, I guess the bottom line is that if it is really that serious, if it was really that deadly, if you really did have to lock down California and basically shut down its economy for 9 years, Jesus Christ, 9 months.
Yeah, listen, you might prove clairvoyant on that. Right? Who knows if it doesn't take that long?
But like, if it really was that terrifying, you wouldn't be coming outside. You wouldn't be meeting with 10 people. You wouldn't be going to get your hair cut. If you truly believe the rhetoric that you're espousing every day, you wouldn't do that shit either. And it's just so fucking tiring because as they stand up there, they're just, we need to stay together apart. We're apart together. We're together apart because we're all one United States and stay inside. And then they go outside, la-di-da-di-da, let me go get a sandwich and do all this shit that I just told everyone else not to do.
Well, you bring up a good point, and a note that we've hit on this podcast several times is that, what you were just saying about the whole, if it was really that deadly, like you wouldn't do the things that they're mandating anyway.
Right.
And now, so like I said, in terms of these people, the ones that think that they're entitled to run your life, it's because they think that you're so stupid you won't listen to anything, and that's why you need to be mandated to do it. When the real actuality is we all have two eyeballs.
I care about my health just as much as the
and we're
person.
All capable of reasoning through things. So if it was that deadly, then we would do those things voluntarily. And the point is that, and here's the theme that we always come back to, good ideas don't require force. If you have to resort to force to get your policy objective achieved, or you have to resort to force to get somebody to do what you want them to do, chances are your idea wasn't that good because it wasn't capable of persuading people. Now, granted, we're talking about a virus, and is it quote unquote a good idea or not? That's not the point. The point is, if everything you're telling us about how transmittable and deadly and every bad, scary thing about this thing that you could possibly say, if it was true and corpses were just lining the streets, then yeah, people would change their behavior. They already did. I mean, if you look at the charts from district to district, right? And you just see cases. You could say, we could pick California, we could pick Chicago, we could pick New York, we could pick all these different, and you just look at the charts, and we'll put the charts up in the show notes page so you can see what I'm talking about. And if I didn't put anywhere on that chart, here is where the mask mandate went into at that location. If everything they were telling us about masks is true, like the CDC Director, Redfield, at one point testified in front of Congress, said that a mask was more helpful than a vaccine would be. That's how great masks are supposed to be, right? So if that's true, you would look at these charts in these different places and you would expect, well, it went way, way up, the cases, and then they put a mask mandate at the top, and then it went way, way down, right? That's what you'd expect. You'd expect to see some sort of
correlation between the numbers and the theory.
Right. You'd expect to see some sort of trend between what we're being told and what's playing out in the real world, right? Instead, when you look at these charts, and it's all over the United States. There's data from, Europe and Asia and everywhere in between. And sometimes the mask mandate went in at the bottom before it even started to peak. Sometimes at the peak and it went down. Sometimes on the other side of the peak when it was already trending down. So if it's already going down before the mandate can't take credit for it, right? But the point is, where the mandates went into effect is just totally scatterplotted. There's no correlation whatsoever between the imposition of a mandate and cases rising, falling, or anything else. It's just a total scatterplot of data. Now, somebody with an IQ above room temperature would look at that and say, maybe if there's no correlation, there's not even any correlation. How could there be causation? Yet the experts say, wear it. If you don't, you want to kill your grandma. If you don't, you're a selfish piece of shit. If you don't, all of the...
It's another form of compliance. And then really, the scary part to me is that during these, vacuums of space and time that we get launched into with like these tragic events such as coronavirus. And again, we're not poo-pooing coronavirus. It's a disease that's communicated very easily, and we haven't seen it before, and there's been plenty of deaths.
The fact that you even have to say that insults the intelligence of the meme.
However, you have to.
And I agree. I know.
I'm sorry. I might as well be reading off the cue card right now. But it's always a power grab at these points too, because they use these we're trying to keep you safe methods, and then all of a sudden they're keeping us safe by making documents that are like the Patriot Act. Who could deny the Patriot Act? Like we were talking about last time. It's like, sounds good to me, but then you look into it, and now they can basically hack your entire life. If they just want to, under the guise of terrorism, they can just infiltrate anything they want. It's like, that doesn't make me feel a lot safer. It's just like, imagine the government was a human person and it goes, listen, I just need the key just in case you're ever out of town and you leave the stove on. I can come over and I can get into your house and I'll just turn the stove off, and then that'll be fine. Mm-hmm. So one night you're engaged in passionate lovemaking with your paramour. Then all of a sudden you hear chips being eaten in your bedroom. It's like, hey, the fuck are you doing here, government? Oh, I just let myself in. Figured I heard a little screaming or whatnot. What are you guys doing? Is that the missionary position?
Just thought I'd come over. My internet's down, so I don't have Pornhub. So I figured I'd come watch the real thing.
I figured we're all so close, How much longer do you think you guys are going to be? Because I was going to help myself to your fridge, but I was going to finish this bag of chips first. It gets old after a while.
It does. I was somebody, I can't take credit for this. I don't know who it was, but somebody made this point the other day, is when the AIDS epidemic broke out in the 80s, and the rush to judgment, right, in terms of AIDS was all, it was coming from a lot of the realms of social conservatism and stuff like that. But it was like, oh, you got AIDS, that means you were irresponsible, you were bad, you did something wrong, bad. A bunch of moral judgment on the person who got it, right?
Right.
And now we look back at that, 40 years later, and we go, that was the wrong way to approach that, in terms of casting moral judgment on people for catching something that was, another phrase that I'm not taking credit for, but that somebody said recently on social media was virus gonna virus. No matter what lockdowns we do, no matter what mask mandates we do, the virus is gonna move, and all of the data shows that. Doesn't matter where mandates and lockdowns go into a place, the virus has a mind of its own, and it spreads throughout the population however it's gonna spread until you reach herd immunity. So anyway, back to the AIDS thing. So we look back on that and we're like, that was kind of a shitty thing to do, to just make it all about morality and you're a bad person if you got it, that kind of thing.
Right.
I think that in a few years, I don't think the person who said this, I just agree with it, that in 10, 15, 20 years, we look back at this time period with coronavirus and how it's all like, you didn't wear a mask, you want grandma to die. Or, oh, your uncle got coronavirus and died. Well, ha ha ha. Good on you. That's what you get because you personally weren't following the rules, or whatever the case. The doomer masker people are saying, casting all these moral dispersions. I think we're going to look back and say it's the same thing, that we're going to say, like, listen, it's a highly communicable virus. If you're in a certain age demographic or a comorbid demographic, you're at higher risk than other people. And instead of treating that for what it is and saying, okay, we need to protect the elderly and we need to protect the people who are, very sick, but everybody else, just go out, live your life. If you get it, you get it. But we're going to be to herd immunity quicker if you do. And actually, that's the other thing. So I was thinking about Grandma the other day. And I was like, Grandma has been sufficiently
quarantined.
Oh, I mean, definitely quarantined. But even when like talking about the subject, like the scare tactics, the fear mongering has gotten to her, right? And so I'm thinking, okay, she's in the older demographic, so she should be protected and all that kind of stuff. But think about what we're doing as a society from April up to today, with all the lockdowns, with all of the things that we've done. What we've delayed is herd immunity amongst the younger, healthier population. And so what it's really doing is it's keeping people like Grandma, like the sick, in isolation longer than they otherwise would be. This whole second wave bullshit, like, again, I'm not entitled to this.
When did they come out and say that it's getting better? Like, if there was a second wave, it implies that there's a dip in between. When did they ever come out and say that we're finally over it? This is past the first wave. There was never we're good. The all clear sounded and we walked back out, but all of a sudden there's just a second wave coming now. Like, that implies that there was a dip.
Well, but here's the thing about that whole second wave narrative is, again, feel free to disregard this because I'm not an epidemiology or virology expert, so I'm not even entitled to an opinion on this. But I can,
as we aforementioned,
I can read things like the Great Barrington Declaration from people like Sunitra Gupta from Oxford University, who is one of the world's most premier epidemiologists and virologists, universally respected in those fields. And she signs on to the thing of what they call focus protection. Protect the elderly, protect the sick. But other than that, herd immunity for the rest of the population is what's going to get us through this thing faster. Anyway, virology epidemiology 101 will tell you no virus ever in the history of always has ever operated in a way where you have a wave and then a second wave. You either get to herd immunity and then it's over, or you don't. So that all this second wave is it's an increase in cases because we delayed the movement by going into lockdown, shutdown, whatever. So there never was a first wave and then a second wave. It moved through the population when the population was fresh and new. It maintained a stagnated level for a while, and now it's moving through the population again because, surprise, surprise, you kept the population locked down for 6 or 7 months, and now they're just like, fuck it. I'm going to Thanksgiving with my family. I don't care anymore what these experts say. They're completely wrong. When they say, oh, well, wear the mask for 4 to 8 weeks, universal compliance for 4 to 8 weeks of mask wearing, and we'll get this thing behind us. Well, yeah, this whole thing started with 14 days to slow the spread, and look at us now. Yeah. We're 7, 8, 9 months
sitting in a fucking gulag. So I wanted to have turkey with my family.
So yeah, there's no such thing as a second wave in terms of how viruses move. There is only the virus moves how it's going to move, and we can tinker around the edges and marginally change how it operates based on different policy objectives. And again, that 14 days to slow the curve, that actually had a valid purpose to it. The valid purpose was we can't have everybody get sick all at once because the hospitals will be overwhelmed. That never happened. Maybe in insular places like New York where the hospitals were strained, but that hospital ship they pulled into the harbor hardly saw anybody. So again, we've
bashed this so much, Dane. Let's end on a higher note, seeing as this is the holiday of being thankful. I'm thankful for this rat I just killed over here because it's going to be my meal for tonight because I didn't get to enjoy all the turkey that I wanted. I'm thankful for all the listeners, all the 22 of you, perhaps, maybe even more by this point.
There's more. There's got to be more.
You're out there somewhere.
They really love us.
And for, my health and, one of the weirdest years that I've ever seen in my life. Dane, what are you grateful for or thankful for?
I'm thankful for agorism.
There we go. There's the word of the day, agorism, to agorite.
Which we'll put up a definition at the show notes page, but it's just basically ignoring the laws and like if the authorities mandate something around you and it's feasible that you can just ignore it and continue to live your life how you wanted, go ahead and do it.
So you took a nice thing we were trying to do and you turned it back to cynicism.
No, that's good. How's that cynicism?
Oh, you just fuck the man, Fucking, I'm grateful for fucking the man.
I mean, in a way, it is fuck the man, but really, and it is an uplifting thing about freedom and liberty is that, as long as they can't enforce it, you still can live your life however you want.
As long as there's enough of us that they can't see one individual doing the wrong thing.
Have that 11th family member. Enjoy that. Yeah. Enjoy that extra drink with a friend.
Get that fucking haircut,
That's right, baby.
Have that meeting with all those 10 people that you definitely shouldn't be having a meeting with.
Yeah.
And until then, where can they find this, Dane?
They can find us at wmdpodcast.com/20. All the podcast catchers that they get their podcast from, YouTube. And come to the website, wmdpodcast.com, and jump on that email list because you'll get to hear from us more than once a week if you do that.
There you go.
So, yeah. Well, David, let's start planning this escape out of the Gulag.
All right. I got this little wooden spoon over here. I'm going to start working in this corner.
Fortunately for you, I watched Shawshank Redemption a couple weeks ago, so I got my strategy down.
Get those little ribs out of that rat that I just killed, and we'll be tunneling out of this bitch in no time.
Exactly.
All right. Hopefully from a Gulag-free episode next week, guys.
Indeed.
Stay salty.
Peace.